Lesson 3-7, Example 2. Our objective is learning to divide whole numbers and decimals by decimals. Well, here we have a problem. After driving 216 and 3/10 miles, the Yorks filled up with 10 and 5/10 gallons of gas. On average, how many miles did they drive per gallon of gasoline? And this is a pretty common question for drivers. They want to know how far they can go per gallon of gas, so they have a general idea either how much money they need to buy new gas or how far they can go with the number of gallons that they have in their tank. So we want to go through our problem solving steps, and the first thing we want to do is determine the question. And our question here is, how many miles did they drive per gallon of gas? And this question here is actually, we want to make sure that we're going to come back to this question again, because this question gives a lot of information in and of itself. Important information. Well, we know that they drove 216 and 3/10 miles, and they bought 10 and 5/10 gallon of gas. Now I want to determine my strategy. Well, these numbers here, not the easiest to work with. So I think I'm going to look at solving a simpler problem first. That's my strategy. And solving a simpler problem using numbers that I feel more comfortable with can oftentimes then help me use the same steps with more challenging numbers. So let's see if I can figure out what I need to do here. Let's pretend that instead of driving 216 miles, they drove 10 miles. And instead of buying 10 and 5/10 gallons of gas, they bought 2 gallons of gas. So the idea is that if I can solve this problem, I can solve this problem. So I want to look in and I want to know, I'm going to go back to my question. How many miles do they drive per gallon? So we want to know how far do they go miles per gallon of gas. Well, interesting. Per, another way I can think of per, that stands for division. So miles per gallon. Or the number of miles I went was 10 per number of gallons was 2. So I can rewrite this miles per gallon as miles per gallon. And 10 divided by 2 is 5. So I would say 5 miles per gallon, and that can be abbreviated MPG. Now, if I can solve that problem, then I can figure out this problem because I'm still finding out miles per gallon. So if I take miles per gallon again, I'm going to say they drove 216 and 3/10 miles per 10 and 5/10 gallons of gas. Here's my miles, here's my gallons. So again, I have 216 and 3/10 divided by 10 and 5/10. So that I can set up like this. Well, now I see that I have a decimal being divided by a decimal, so I need to get this so that I'm dividing this number here by a whole number. That means I need to move this decimal over to the right one place value so that I have 105. And if I do it here, I need to do it here, so I'm going to move this decimal over 1 here, and then I put 2,163. So here's my new problem. So 105 is going to go into 216 2 times. That's 210. 6, this 3 comes down. 105 goes into 63 0 times. 63 again. My decimal place is there. I'm going to go ahead and put it up in my solution there. Now I need something to bring down, so here I'm going to bring in this 0, and I'm going to bring this down. 630. 105 goes into 630 6 times. Comes out to be exactly 630. 0. So my solution here is 20 and 6/10 miles per gallon. That is how far they drove, how many miles they drove per gallon of gas, miles per gallon. Now let's double check this though. We need to look back and make sure that our answer is correct. Well, in this case, since I did division, I can use multiplication as a double check. So I'm going to multiply 20 and 6/10. I'm going to multiply that times my original gallons there, 10 and 5/10. And if I do that, I should come up with 216 and 3/10. Let's see if that's the case. 6 times 5 is 30. 0, 3, 10, 0, 0, and 0. 6, 0, and 2. Add those up. 0, 3, 6, 1, 2. I have 2 decimal places in my problem, so I'm going to come over 1, 2 decimal places in my solution, and I come up with 216 and 30 hundredths, or 216 and 3/10, which is what I started with. So this is the correct solution to my problem.